Welcome, dear listeners, to the dark realms of Scary Story Central. I am your guide through the shadows, the keeper of spine-chilling tales that will send shivers down your spine. But before we dive into the abyss, a quick reminder to those brave souls with us tonight. Don't forget to like this video if you dare to continue the journey with us. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Scary Story Central and ring that notification bell, so you never miss a bone-chilling tale that we have in store for you. Don't be afraid to leave your comments below and share your own harrowing experiences. Man, I couldn't believe what I saw on the news yesterday. I was just chilling at work, flipping through the channels on the TVs we had at the store. The news hit me like a freight train. My wife, Jessica, and our 3 kids were apparently gone. A car accident, they said. I sat there, frozen, as the newscaster rattled off their names. My heart sank, and my whole world crumbled right there. My coworkers tried to comfort me, saying things like, "I'm so sorry, Jimmy," and "if there's anything we can do." But honestly, nothing could fill the void that news had punched into my gut. I appreciated their efforts though. It was a tough day, and I just couldn't shake off the feeling that I'd lost everything. Night fell, and I went home to an empty, cold house. The silence was deafening. I crawled into bed, praying it was all just a messed up nightmare. I mean, how could I face a world without Jessica's laughter or the kids' never-ending energy? Morning came, and I swear I heard noises echoing through the house. Confused, I followed the sound and, to my disbelief, found my whole family there. Jessica greeted me with a smile. The kids were at the table talking about their next camping trip. It was like the news had never happened. My emotions were all over the place, from despair to an overwhelming joy that filled the void I thought was permanent. I had to make sure. Maybe it was just a coincidence. I hurried to my laptop, opened it up, and searched for yesterday's news. And there it was, the same names, the same identities, titled, "Death of a Mother and 3 Kids." My heart sank again. "Jimmy, breakfast is ready for you. You gotta head to work soon," Jessica called from the kitchen. I stood there, baffled. The doubt crept in like a shadow, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Maybe it was all a weird coincidence, but my mind refused to let go of the idea that my family might not be as alive as they seemed. I decided to go to work, thinking maybe it was just a mix-up in the news. But those strange doubts lingered in the back of my mind, casting a shadow over the happiness that had briefly warmed my heart. I couldn't shake the feeling that reality was playing tricks on me, and my life was turning into some bizarre puzzle with missing pieces. I couldn't shake off the weird vibes that lingered from the morning. My coworkers acted like the news of my family's demise never happened. Greetings were casual, conversations were normal. It was surreal. I decided to approach Dan, my closest coworker who witnessed my grief just yesterday. "Hey Dan, did you know that my family passed away yesterday?" I asked, my voice filled with uncertainty. Dan stared at me, confusion etched on his face. "Is this some kind of joke to you, Jimmy?" he responded. I pressed on, mentioning the news about the mother and 3 kids. Dan acknowledged the local news but questioned if it was all part of a prank. Frustrated, I cut the conversation short, realizing I was getting nowhere. Doubts continued to cloud my mind throughout the day. Was it all a sick joke, or was there something more sinister at play? After work, I spotted Jessica walking alone on the streets, an unusual behavior for her. My curiosity piqued. I decided to follow her discreetly, like a shadow in the night. The journey led us 3 miles away from the city, where she stumbled upon a small, eerie shed in the middle of the forest. She looked around cautiously before entering. I remained vigilant, lurking in the shadows, my heart pounding. As I cautiously stepped into the shed, I noticed a dark entrance leading underground. A cold shiver ran down my spine, as if an ominous force warned me against proceeding. Despite the terrifying sensation, I couldn't resist the urge to discover the truth. Was my family really alive, or was there something darker at play? The choice loomed before me: enter the foreboding darkness or walk away from the unsettling discovery that awaited. I stood there, torn between the fear of the unknown and the desperate need for answers. The shed held secrets, and the decision to uncover them weighed heavily on my shoulders. Days passed, and I found solace in the seemingly normal routine of family life. The kids, engrossed in a Disney movie, brought a genuine smile to my face. The warmth of our home enveloped me, yet a lingering fear and doubt persisted in the depths of my mind. Curiosity gnawed at me, and I couldn't help but question the kids about their mom's whereabouts. They nonchalantly mentioned she had gone to the grocery store for dinner ingredients. As if on cue, Jessica walked in, a bag of groceries in hand. A kiss on the cheek, a warm greeting, it was all so normal. She headed to the kitchen, and the aroma of cooking filled the air, just like any other day. I convinced myself that maybe avoiding the investigation into the mysterious entrance was the right decision. I have a family that is alive, and they are the same as they were before. That's good enough for me, I reassured myself. The days rolled by in a haze of happiness spent with my seemingly resurrected family. Despite the moments of joy, the thought of the secret entrance lingered like a shadow. The internal struggle persisted, and I questioned if I should venture back into the unknown, risking everything I had regained. My family is alive, and that's all that matters, I repeated to myself every morning, as if trying to drown out the nagging doubts. The routine became a shield against the unsettling thoughts that plagued me. Unable to keep it to myself any longer, I decided to seek advice from the vast, anonymous realm of the internet. I crafted a post on a forum platform known as Reddit, pouring out my story to faceless strangers. I am asking for your opinion, wondering if I should take the plunge into the mysterious underground or cherish the happiness I had found with my family. I now wait, expecting my responses to be offering a different perspective. Some may urge caution, emphasizing the joy I had in my present. Or maybe some might fuel my curiosity, pushing me to uncover the truth that lay beneath the surface. The waiting game has left me more conflicted than ever, torn between the safety of my newfound happiness and the relentless curiosity that clawed at my mind. So guys, should I be happy with what I have? Or investigate the truth? Hurry up in the shower, we have to leave soon, I yelled towards the bathroom at my husband. Every year, at some point in the days leading up to Christmas, our families get together. We were already making bad timing when he realized he needed a shower. I had misplaced my earrings, paranoid about making us even later. As I walked past the bathroom, I noticed the door wide open. My husband stood there, still naked from having recently departed the shower. He had draped a pastel orange towel over his head, one that I didn't even know we owned. It didn't cross my mind at the time, just a fleeting thought. He swayed gently from side to side, like a swinging pendulum. I giggled. Stop being silly, you know we're running late. Have you seen my earrings? Immediately upon entering the bedroom, I spotted them gently glistening on the bedside table. Relieved, I yelled again. Never mind, found them. As I put the first in, my gaze fell directly ahead of me, at the painting of a lighthouse hung on our bedroom wall. My husband was never a stranger to local markets. He almost had a talent for buying the strangest items. I've grown used to it, but this painting always stood out to me as a bizarre purchase. The lighthouse stands as the subject, with a series of indistinct colorful blobs painted around the bottom, a crowd of nondescript people, I had always assumed. On the frame, at the bottom, a title or note or quote of some kind had been etched in. The Jolly Good Fellows. My trail of thought was cut short as I failed to get the second earring in. I had stabbed myself slightly, and began to head to the bathroom for the assistance of the mirror. He was still standing there, swaying. Honey, we really need to go soon. Please get ready. I approached the mirror. Seeing no blood, I breathed a sigh of relief and put the second earring in. The whole time, from the corner of my eye, I could still see him swaying. The towel blocked any view of his head. My patience was wearing thin. Had he even sorted his clothes out yet? Honey, come on, I spoke as I lifted the towel from his face. Peering under, I expected to see him smiling, acting playfully. I felt a little bad, but being ever aware of the ticking clock, Sometimes I have to remind him to have urgency, even when he's just playing around. His eyes were wide, his face emotionless. He stared forward as though there wasn't a wall a few feet from his face, like he was looking just a little past everything. He stopped swaying as the towel was removed, but remained in this state. I gently held his hand. "Come with me, let's sit down." I knew something was wrong. As I guided him to the bed and sat him down, his arm felt limp, as though his muscles were void of any connection to the brain. "Let's get you some clothes, okay? We can talk about what's wrong." I tried to speak calmly as I turned around and searched through the wardrobe. I began asking questions, trying to take his mind off of things. My mind, while still aware of the time, was now more focused on my husband's well-being. Noticing a lack of answers or responses, I turned back to face him. "Have you ever jumped at the lack of something?" Usually, we jump at the sudden presence of something we were not expecting. Perhaps the sudden movement of an object we thought would remain motionless. But when I saw my husband wasn't behind me, my body jolted slightly. I hadn't heard him move, or felt him walk past me. I expected him to still be on the bed. The lack thereof was enough of a shift to shock me. "Honey?" I yelled slightly, wondering where he was. I walked past the bathroom. There he was, orange towel draped over his head, swaying gently at the same rhythm as before. "If you don't respond to me, I'm calling an ambulance." I needed a quick answer. My mind jumped straight to some form of brain injury, perhaps from falling over in the shower. I knew that acting fast is the only chance you have to minimize damage. He didn't answer. I removed the towel from his head as I dialed emergency services. Again, he stopped swaying. As I explained everything to them, I watched as he knelt down, picked the towel back up, and draped it back over his head. The swaying continued thereafter. Paramedics arrived shortly. He put up no fight, and allowed them to escort him to the ambulance in a wheelchair. I kept asking questions about whether he'd be okay. They had to keep assuring me that whilst the hospital would do everything they could, they had no information to go off of. My racing mind looked past this, and continued to ask similar questions regardless. He kept trying to stand up whilst en route to the hospital, yet would be compliant when gently pushed back down. As long as someone was guiding him, he would follow. When this stopped, would he try to move? The same had happened back home. He only got up and left once I had sat him down and let go of him. Through the sound of the sirens wailing overhead, the bumps of the ambulance's journey, and trying to hold back my tears, I could hear a familiar tune. My husband, showing almost no other signs of activity, was gently humming. I leaned in to get a better listen. It was a very low tone, and each note seemed to begin as a hum, yet end as more of a raspy breath. Each one seemed to continue for slightly longer than they were supposed to. But I recognized this tune he was humming, for he's a jolly good fellow. Arriving at the hospital felt like a blur. Everyone knew exactly where they were going. I was following along, completely lost in this maze of signs and painted lines intended to guide. We had left the ambulance, and arrived at his assigned bed before I could process what was happening. As soon as he was laid down, the confusing blur continued. "Ma'am, could we borrow you in the next room? We just need you to fill out some paperwork." "Not until I know if my husband is okay," I snapped. "We understand. But the best chance at survival is if we understand everything. This paperwork will take care of some of that." I was assured that a doctor would be in the room shortly, and that my husband was in good hands. I shouldn't have listened. They certainly didn't. I explained that he kept trying to get up and walk about, but they clearly underestimated. I hadn't even helped the lady fill out my husband's personal information before we were informed that he was missing. "He can't be far. Keep an eye on all entrances." The staff spoke to each other urgently. I was asked to remain calm and continue helping with the paperwork, but I refused. I attempted to run around the hospital to join the search, but was quickly told that I don't have the authority to be wandering around alone. I hardly cared. My husband was the only thing on my mind, but I didn't want to be escorted out and risk not seeing him at all when he's found. I took my efforts outside the hospital. I looked around the parking area, and then the nearby streets. After an hour and a half, I was still wandering, with no word from the hospital of any findings in the building. I began to walk home, hoping that somehow he had remembered the way. It was a 20-minute walk. I could not imagine that he had survived in his state, let alone managed to correctly identify the entire journey home. But it was worth a shot. I arrived to find our front window smashed. No glass on the pavement below told me that somebody had broken in. Perhaps I should have been more cautious, but I just wanted to know if my husband was inside. My hand shook as I struggled to get the key into the lock. Once I did, I turned the handle and ran inside. I don't think I even closed the door behind me. "Honey? Are you here?" I don't know if I was surprised to see what I saw, or whether I expected this. There he was, in the bathroom, orange towel draped over his head, swaying gently. This time, a pool of blood collected on the tiled floor below, dripping from his right arm. Cuts on his legs and torso told the full story. He had no concept of pain. He smashed the window to get in, to get back to this exact spot. The injuries meant nothing to him for whatever reason. His mind was focused only on anchoring itself in that bathroom, under the gentle weight of a towel. Crying, I approached him, and lifted the towel slightly. I hardly even noticed the blood soaked into it. His eyes were red. Had he even blinked since this began? The humming continued. I should have contacted emergency services immediately, but instead I just stood there. I stared into his eyes, pretending he was staring back into mine. I wanted him back. Gently, he lifted an arm, and pulled the towel back down over his face. I don't know how long I stood there sobbing. "Please, talk to me. I love you." The gentle humming would have been comforting, but the slight inconstancy of the rhythm was a subtle reminder that my husband had no awareness. I thought back to all our recent conversations. Everything we've ever done together. Lately, he's had a fascination with the ocean. I could never understand it. A horizon swallowed by the forever swaying and crashing of waves never appealed to me. He used to tell me all sorts of facts. One that particularly disturbed me was an old tradition of placing a towel over the faces of sailors who had passed whilst at sea. Once back on the shore, you'd place a towel over their face, as you waited for somebody to arrive with help or a hearse. Curiosity having a moment of breakthrough as I grieved my still-living husband, I went into the bedroom. I took a closer look at the painting. The blobs at the bottom of the lighthouse, I had always assumed them to be nondescript people, with little detail added, though I had never understood why the blobs were so colorful. Only then did I realize they were not a crowd gathering at the bottom of the lighthouse. There were dozens of bodies laid out on the shore. Pastel-colored towels were draped over their faces. Perhaps my husband is there now, forever visiting the lighthouse, staring into the horizon as it's swallowed by the ocean.